Hello everybody and welcome back to Slow Your Roll. I'm Alex and we're going to be talking about another homebrew review. And no, I'm not going to be doing the review, that one's up to you. As always, whenever we do these, there should be a PDF down in the description for you if you want to bring it to your table too. But without further ado, let's get to it. What's the concept today? Today we're going to be covering the concept of what happens when a god dies, and where. Specifically, the environment in which a god just recently perished is going to now be called a blessed ground. Blessed grounds are regions where the divine energy of fallen gods, celestials, or titanic beings has seeped into the environment. This energy permeates every aspect of the local ecosystem and can profoundly affect the development of societies in the area. This divine energy was tied to the will of the god, but now that they're gone, it's slowly dissipating. It may take decades for this to fully go away, which is why it was able to alter the environment in which the divine energy permeates. The environment itself may absorb the divine energy, but it's not an ideal vessel for sustaining it long term. Plants, animals, and the land can hold on to the divine power for so long before it begins to fade. Every time mortals, animals, and plants tap into this divine energy, they inadvertently increase its fading away. So, as a cruel joke to the mortals who can do nothing but strip the land of its resources, they'll be gone in an instant. But how exactly is it going to alter the land, animal, and the environment? Whatever environment that you've chosen, it's essentially like mutating it beyond recognition. It's going to be like having an extra magical area in your already magical world. What that might look like is large plants, some of them may glow or have magical effects. Not only the plants, but the animals that grew up in that environment could have lasting effects of being beefier, bigger. There could be even different magical effects that make the deer glow or cast spells. And all of this is really dependent on the type of god and energy that was dispersed across the land. Was it the god of good and order, then it's probably going to affect the environment much differently than the god of fire and brimstone. The many different ways that the environment could be affected is not just from the plants and animals, but the weather itself. What if there was a different type of weather pattern that happened only in the blessed grounds? And these weather patterns could be extremely erratic or always peaceful. Maybe this area is always day or always night. And you could even take the environmental effects even farther. What if anybody spending time within these blessed grounds has really thought a day went by, but on the outside an entire week has passed? So there could even be some sort of time distortion just between the areas of the normal and blessed areas. Having your animals be beefier and better might not be the only thing that could happen. There could be an avatar that manifests within these areas. It could manifest on an animal or maybe a person who spent far too much time in the blessed grounds. But this avatar could be the embodiment of the fallen god's ideals and could test anyone who comes within the blessed grounds. An excellent story hook, and I do want to say, not all of the things that can happen in the blessed grounds will. So if you don't like the avatar, don't use it. If you don't like the time distortion, don't use it. But there's a bunch of different extra magical things to help sell that these are the divine lands. As I referenced before, you could probably imagine the territory wars that are fought over these magnificent places. And if it happens in your territory, you can only imagine how much of an uplifting financial benefit this could be for the kingdom. But if all this stuff isn't necessarily up and up on the normal markets, then there's going to be an extensive black market for all of the things that you can find within these blessed grounds. The fruit and vegetable growing within the blessed grounds have extra magical effects. I've left that down in the PDF for you below. But they do things like healing, resistances, or even granting you some sort of stat boost, if your players are looking for them too. But it's not just the things that you can eat that's valuable within these areas. You're gonna find a black market for almost anything. Especially if the god is recently deceased. You might find people looking for god's blood, bones, scales, teeth, different kinds of things that they could use to make for magical effects that they know are just overflowing with divine power. And another cool little thing that can be traded along with these different markets, crystals of divine power. They're basically just an overload of divine power coalescing into a crystal because nothing around them could absorb it fast enough. These crystals are absolutely going to be very highly sought after and give you an extra spell slot should you use it as a spell casting focus. And since we just mentioned these crystals, it's clear to see that even inanimate objects can be affected. The funniest of which might be your sword left in the blessed grounds for a day or two, just sitting there, waiting, getting enchanted. I even left a spontaneous enchantments table, and there's a 1 in 10 chance it's a cursed item. But this would probably be the funniest way to show to your players that anything can happen in these areas. But don't worry, most of the enchantments are relatively good and balanced, like a minor speed boost, or maybe now your sword glows blue just like the Lord of the Rings. Plenty of different enchantments to check out, and you can always change them yourself. Now you could imagine the plenty of different people that would be looking to spend time in or around these grounds. There'd be people who are looking to harvest these materials and sell them along. There's people who would pilgrimage to this area because the god that fell in this area was the one that they worshipped. Others looking to just spend time in these areas meditating, looking for different divine insights or visions. And like I've said, you can only imagine the amount of territory wars over these areas. Now we've spent a decent amount of time on all the good things that the blessed grounds can bring. But there's a few negatives that people might not first recognize when it comes to a divine energy. First and foremost, mortals aren't really meant to be consuming divine energy. At the very least, they're not able to sustain it. Over-consuming things like divine meats, fruits, and veggies would definitely have a divine overload in a way, where it becomes a werewolf transformation in a way. It's a celestial being transformation where you're very much inclined to attack the closest thing you see. It doesn't last very long, and if it did affect your players, I'd say it's probably only a round or two. But at the same time, this could be an excellent catalyst for different story hooks to be affecting your NPCs. But on the exact opposite side of overconsumption, divine madness could affect those who've spent weeks, months, or even years within these blessed grounds, developing an unhealthy fixation on the divine power, losing a sense of free will in a way. And if this does end up affecting your players, I've pointed to the short-term madness table that you can find into the Dungeon Master's Guide. And really, that's all that happens when you take in too much divine power. But there can be so many negative side effects to a god dying, like the forgotten dead. Those who worshipped the god or never knew that the god died or didn't want to change religions, when they die, where's their soul gonna go? It's very likely that those souls will be wandering the earth or look to pilgrimage in this area. A blessed grounds that's been around for a decade, maybe even a century, might be filled with those followers. And one of the most dastardly things that could come from a blessed ground are divine parasites. A divine leech, if you will. Pretty much a parasite that only looks to consume this type of divine energy. You could find it on a plant or an animal, but you'll mainly find it on people. Because for some reason, people absorb divine energy so much better. And when they run out of divine energy to suck out of the living host, they start going for their own life force. So those can be something incredibly tricky to deal with. But what happens when the divine energy is finally gone? An eternal scar is left on the land because the environment was depending on that divine energy for some time. It'll almost look like a dead and decayed area. As the divine energy fades completely, there might be a final surge of power that I call the last breath from the fallen god or celestial entity. This event could cause a cataclysmic shift in the landscape and cause the scar that we're talking about. Now, it's not all blessings with these blessed grounds. You could definitely make it take an evil turn and they could be your cursed grounds, if you will. This evil type of energy slowly corrupting each and everything within the area. A couple of example story hooks could just be looking for a divine relic of the god that was vanquished in the area. Perhaps his sword was lost to time and your party is here to find it. One of the most obvious, a divine war. A certain faction might claim this area as their own, seeing as it's the god they used to worship, or they worship the god that vanquished it. Perhaps a kingdom or organization is looking to purify these evil lands to hopefully get some of their territory back. What if other divine beings and gods see mortals able to wield this divine energy and are looking for divine retribution? It could be an entire group or sect of followers smiting those who are found with the divine energy or materials. And who knows how high a level your players are, because they might even have to interact with the god themselves. But in this PDF, we've left a quick example of what it might look like to create a Blessed Grounds, and if you guys wanted an example of what that looks like, please check it out down below. But I think that's pretty much everything, everybody. If you have any ideas of how to take this idea to the next level, please leave it down below. And until next time, everybody, I'll see you all later. Try number 2, but with a hot drink. I know you guys can't hear my dogs drinking right now, but for the love of God, that's all I can hear. Cuppy break. Totoro. That's helping. Good boy. Come on.